Alrighty. Hey, Landon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Sonata. How are you doing?
I'm also doing well. Thank you for asking. So, when I have a new person on the podcast, I ask them a question similar to this. What is something you believe to be true about God and why?
Ooh. I believe he's a lot more compassionate than I think we commonly believe. And that's based off of Jesus and just the way that people, the way that the Gospels describe Jesus. I think that we think of God and Jesus as being sort of pitted against each other, and God being this big, menacing, like, kind of like hard to please dad. And I think that he's a lot more affectionate as like an Old Testament than it just being like a New Testament Old Testament thing. Because God, if you read the book Charis, which I think that's how it's pronounced, by Preston Sprinkle, kind of goes through how grace is in the Old Testament, but we oftentimes think of that
Mm,
as being a New Testament thing, but in reality, it's a whole Bible thing. So that's just first thing that comes to mind.
yeah, sounds good to me. I think every Christian needs to know that God is compassionate. The Trinity is compassionate. So that is a beautiful thing. I love that. So, can you tell the people who you are and why you're on the podcast?
Yeah, my name is Landon Swain. I'm a youth ministry worker living in the New Jersey area, but I actually work in Pennsylvania, Bucks County, if you can see my hat. The reason I'm on the podcast is because I wrote a book on Christian dating culture called Detox Christian Dating. And it stems from my experience at a Christian college and learning about people's actual experiences with dating within the church, and then finding out uh, much larger than my individual college how it was more of a like Christian culture problem as it was, with
Mm,
a lot of weird motivations, weird pressures, weird policies and sayings that people were doing that were just making things really complicated. When dating's complicated in and of itself, like it's two imperfect people trying to make an imperfect thing work by an imperfect method. But then Christian dating has this whole extra layer to it where it's so much more complicated because people are really over spiritualizing things and adding in a bunch of biblical lingo and all this stuff. And some of it is biblical and maybe just taken too far. Other things are
mm,
just man made and thrown in there, and people act like it's spiritual when it's not. It might sound very biblical, but it's not. It's the book
hmm
kind of just takes you through those different cultural elements and tries to navigate through things and tries to get us to a healthier cultural place.
Good stuff. Yes. So we're going to be unpacking that today. So what made you so passionate about talking about this subject?
Mainly, it was seeing people that I know get really hurt by their dating experiences.
Mm,
I remember seeing when I put out initial surveys to kind of get people's feelings on it, I was surprised by some people that reached out and they were telling me these horror stories about like how somebody they found out was a pathological liar, how people had
mm,
really passed over them, people had like spiritually manipulated them, and it was just people felt very in the dust, like left in the dust and ostracized because they weren't married by the time they graduated. And there was a lot of just pain. And so seeing that really made me passionate about this the topic and wanting to get us to a better place, because we see a lot of residual effects from the I Kiss Dating Goodbye purity culture movement, and not every element of that was bad, but the parts that were really bad really like stuck home with people and have like caused ripple effects throughout generations. And so yeah, just seeing people get into weird situations, most of it being pretty easily avoidable, made me very passionate about it. And it was the pandemic when I wrote the book, so it was like it was just everyone has their pandemic project, and that was mine. So it just kind of like I became really passionate about it because there was nothing else to do.
very true. There was nothing else to do. And that's when I think I started my podcast. No, that was after that. Never mind. But everybody had a podcast during the pandemic.
Mm, I did for a brief
But
second,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So I guess tell the people a little more about the book. Like what are some of the chapters? Um, Stuff like that.
Yeah. So at first, I just tell the story about how the book came to be, like kind of how I reached out to other colleges. And then I go more into uh, sayings that people say, like God told me that we should break up, or God told me that you're my future spouse. And I kind of go from a biblical lens of how, like, okay, if you say that and it's not real, like if God didn't actually tell you this, but you're saying that He said this, by definition, you are a false prophet. And I don't think people realize like how big of a deal that is.
Mm,
And then
mm,
just kind of guiding people from there into more like take personal ownership of your decisions. Say, I want to go out with you or I want to break up with you instead of just shifting all the blame onto God because it's kind of
right,
manipulative. And it's also just like it's the grown up thing to do. And you're like risking harming somebody's relationship with God because it's like, why
for
does God have
sure.
a vendetta against me? Why does He want me to not be with somebody? Um, so I go through that saying. I go through a few others like we can't date because I want to work on my relationship with God.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Ah, I've never
I
heard
don't
that.
have
No one's
peace
ever said
about
that to me,
this.
but it's like, why would
I
you
prayed
say that
about
to
it.
a human being?
It like some like the whole like I don't want to date anybody because I want to work on my relationship with God and the like I prayed about it. Those have merit. Like I'm not debating. I'm not saying don't pray about it, but
Yeah,
it's more how people have overused them and or are honest within it.
right,
So
right.
the whole I can't date you thing because I want to work on my relationship with God. Most of the time, oh, I shouldn't say most of the time. Oftentimes, when I see someone say that, they're dating somebody pretty soon after. And so it's like, well,
Yes,
I
people
could
do
have,
do that.
yeah, it's like I could have waited. Um, Two, do you think that only people that are single can work in their relationship with the Lord?
Right. What are you doing in marriage then?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like you need to understand that like you don't have to be single for this. Like it's fine if you want to be, but you don't have to be. Um, and people, just there's a few other things with that, but like if you dig deeper into the saying, it's like the other thing is I've seen people say that and then no additional work in their relationship with God, no additional time in
Mm-hmm.
prayer, no scripture, no fasting, no nothing. And it's like, well, if you said it, do something.
Right.
But people don't. They just use it as an excuse, and it is like actually affecting people's relationship with God because it's like you were willing to lie to get out of a relationship with me instead of just being straight up, and you don't respect me enough to literally just be like,
Mm,
I just don't like you. I don't see you in a romantic light like that. Or maybe even avoiding saying like the actual problems of like you are annoying, you're a jerk, something like that. And like I have a buddy who went on a date with a girl and she told him, I just don't have peace about this. And that could be true. Like, I'm not discrediting that. But then, like, I was in the car with her months later and she was like, oh no, he's just really weird. And I was like, okay, well, which is it? Like, you don't have peace because he's weird, or you have this like weird, like, it's like it keeps you up at night. Like now he has no idea that when he goes out on dates, he's doing something strange. She could have
right.
assisted him and been like, hey, like I don't really want to go out with you anymore. And like I just didn't connect with this. Like I did feel like some of this stuff is weird. And that's I'm not like acting, and this isn't like a always like girls to guys thing. I know all the examples I've used so far of it girls to guys.
Hmm.
Guys do this just as equally to girls. Um, but it's just the experiences that come to mind.
Hmm.
But where was I going? Oh, I do that all the time.
That's
Uh,
fine.
we we're not setting people up for success oftentimes, and we're doing the stuff that I'm asking of like being really honest, not like just going out of your way to say something mean, but like being honest and like taking ownership. That's hard, but we've been kind of
Hmm.
like pacified in many ways, and to just being like, oh, if you just like either ghost them or give a spiritual excuse instead of just
Right.
doing the hard work of being like, hey, like I'm not interested in you, and I've had to do it. It's hard, but I felt so much better in the end because I was like, I took ownership of this. And
Right.
I know that I didn't blame God for whatever happened. I said, this is me. I'm doing this, which that just says how messed up I am. But at least another person's relationship isn't harmed.
A lot of Christians use Jesus as, in many different facets of their lives to be avoidant in the
Mm,
world. So it's like, oh, that's fine. I'm uncomfortable being vulnerable. So Jesus is my husband. I don't need a man then.
mm,
That's fine. I'm uncomfortable being vulnerable. So I'm going to say that God told me that I shouldn't be dating right now, or God told me, or God's not giving me peace about something. So a lot of Christians use it to be avoidant, and it is very brave to actually tell somebody, I don't like this about you. And I think in addition to that, if you already don't like that person, why not let them know what you don't like, or not even what you don't like, what's kind of putting you off, so they can improve that for the next person that they actually can be with and would actually want to be with them, so they can be mindful of those things in future relationships.
yeah. And there's plenty of a big pushback that I've gotten because I've been saying this is like people talking about like, oh, like I've had to maybe say this because whoever I was dating was like abusive. And I'm only talking about really ordinary situations of like I can understand why somebody would say, hey, like I just don't have peace about this if they're like, I really don't think that the person would listen to anything else. I get that. I'm talking about like the
Mm-hmm.
ordinary, it just doesn't work out type of deal, because people tend to think that I'm not making exceptions for the extremes, and I definitely do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but even I was. Have you ever watched The Rehearsal? Have you seen that? It's new. It's on HBO. It's
No.
it's really fascinating. It's like 6 episodes, but it's Nathan Fielder who did Nathan for You, which is a Hulu show. It's really funny, but it's like super deep. And at one point, he brings in this woman who is practicing. Basically, she's like in her 40s. She's a Christian. She's like practicing being a mom. So they bring in like actual children and they like rehearse her being a mother. And it's really interesting. And it's like a
It's
month-long experiment. But
whoa, that's a
then
long time.
oh yeah, it's like the budget's got to be insane. And you're like you start to question like the ethics of the parents. Like, why are you letting your 3-year-old be parented by someone else for I don't know. It's fine. Um, but they at one point she's dating this guy and he starts like they kind of follow him around a little bit and he like is a professed believer but is like he's like smoking pot, he's like sleeping around or whatever, and then he's like yelling at his he does something to inconvenience his roommate, and then his roommate starts yelling at him, and then he just kind of writes him off as like, oh man, he's just got so many demons. And I was like, no, like you just used like a spiritual thing and you
Mm,
just made that an excuse so that you don't realize how maybe you're the problem
mm-hmm.
because you just think, oh, he has a demon because I believe in Jesus and he doesn't. And it's like I'm watching it. I was like, this is. I wish people could watch it and realize that this is them because
Yes.
I see it all the time, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like, man, this is crazy. And because I was like, no one can watch this and be like, this man is a sane individual. He looked entirely hypocritical. And that's not discrediting demons or whatever, but it was just like, come on, buddy, like you did something wrong here, and then you just don't want to take ownership.
Literally, yeah, very avoidant.
Yeah,
It's not a
yeah,
good time.
yeah.
So what other things would you say has made Christian dating toxic?
I'd say a big one is just the cultural pressures, and that stems from idolizations of different things. So,
Mm,
marriage is very highly idolized within many parts of the church. And that's not to say that like marriage being held highly is bad or that churches holding marriage, like marriage should be held in very high regard.
for sure.
But when people make it so that everything is basically all about marriage. Everybody's got to get married. We don't let a single person in our church hear the end of it until they're married. We're doing a disservice to so many people and missing key parts of the scripture that point out Paul, John the Baptist, Jesus himself, and how if Jesus is the totally fulfilled life, if Jesus is the perfect human being and he was single, what does that say to us?
Mm,
Yes, he had his mission. Like, yes, like he's going to get crucified. So there's that whole ordeal. But Paul, John the Baptist. We if Jesus says John the Baptist was the greatest man that ever lived, and he's single, why are we just saying, oh, everybody's got to get married? And
Mm,
there's biblical backing for, like, it's not good for man to be alone, be fruitful, multiply. I'm not discrediting those things, but people have kind of taken them way beyond their context, and don't allow for like nuances within it. So when everything is about marriage and making kids, you are doing a great disservice to the person that gets married and then is unable to have kids, like from
mm,
a medical standpoint. You're doing a great disservice to the person who has never been able to go on a date due to like a medical condition. Uh,
mm,
I know people that they are just driven to such deep despair because they are desperately trying to get married and have kids because they're running out of time in a sense, and that it's just not happening. It's like if God wants this so badly, I feel like I'm failing him because it's not happening.
mm.
And we're if we're only preaching that message to people, we're doing a disservice. And so that's making, because like marriage is like so prioritized, people are just doing it earlier, and there's a lot of cultural pressures to do it earlier because like couples that are getting married super young are kind of being platformed, and that's not wrong. Like their marriage isn't wrong. I'm not saying that. It's just people kind of put them on a pedestal of like, you got married when you were 22, and it's great for them, like super thrilled for them, but that's not going to be everybody's story. And when you, like, a common thing that I've heard is people will talk about the median age of marriage has risen by like 6 years since like the 1970s or something like that. It's
Mm.
over the course of time, like, and that's a true statistic, but they'll always put that in a negative light, as in, oh, we're getting married later, and that's
Yeah, that is
wrong,
true.
like that's bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, then your mind kind of goes to, okay, well, I kind of want to be, I want to like reduce that statistic. I don't want to be that statistic. I want to be
Mm.
married before then. And then you see people getting married to somebody that they should not have gotten married to because they're told, oh, just throw caution to the wind. These other people did it, and I mean, it should work out for me. There are people that are engaged or dating somebody that they just shouldn't be with, but they
Yeah.
have put marriage on such a high pedestal that they won't let go of it enough to be able to just be without, because they think that
Mm-hmm.
this is what my life is and this is what I have and this is what it's supposed to happen. But you don't have to get married young. You don't even have to get married. I'm not an anti-marriage. Like, I want to get married, but I'm not less because I'm not married.
Right. Yeah. I think I think a lot of the reason why people may dislike your platform is because it's scary to think that they're not going to get married. So they say, "Oh, what the heck is he talking about? You're not including the extremes of people. You're not doing this. You're not doing that." But they need to just be saying like, "I'm scared that I'm not going to get married," and that's okay to feel that way.
Yeah. There's a Actually, what's the last podcast I was on, I talked about a woman who said I was fear mongering because I brought up the statistical reality that not everybody gets married. And then she found me again and said, like, oh, you're just so negative. And it's like, what do you want? I
Is she married?
this is, I don't know. I guess she's not. I don't
Oh,
think
okay.
she is.
Mm,
But she just keeps like bringing it up, and it's like, do you want me to lie to people and say that, oh, everyone will get married when I can
right.
point to dozens and dozens of people that I know that have gone their entire lifetime unmarried?
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, you don't have enough, like she said one comment about like, I didn't have enough faith. And I was like, no, I have faith. That's why I'm like fine with the fact that I'm not married. Like,
Yeah.
my life isn't less than because I'm not married. It's fine if you desire marriage. That's great, and you can like believe for it or whatever. But you're not promised it. No one is.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's a little tight. She's been getting on my nerves.
Yeah, that sounds like a that sounds like a theology flaw for her.
Yeah,
So
not
she
not my
need
favorite interaction.
get in her word a little bit. But yeah, and I think that kind of made me think too. I think in the Christian community, we don't emphasize friendship enough in general. You don't even hear
Oh
them
yeah,
talk about it, the importance of it at like I think it should be talked about as well at marriage conferences as well. What kind of friends do you have in your life? What kind of people are holding you guys accountable, lifting up your marriage? Like, I feel like people use friendship as um like a placeholder until they get a romantic relationship. So they're like, oh, forget all this. I found my man, I found my woman, and I'm good now. Um, so that's also problematic.
Oh yeah, I have I have a tendency. I live in a house with 3 women, and
Okay.
it used to be 4, and so it's just like a lot. Most of them are my age, but it's so nice to just be able to just have platonic friendships. Like we
Yes.
just hang out, and it's like, oh, there doesn't have to be anything romantic going on here. It's just I exist as a man, you exist as a woman, and that's fine. And a
Right.
lot of my friends are they're female, and that's not to say that like, oh, every girl I've ever known, I just want to be friends with them. Like there's definitely been some that I'm like, yeah, I'd like something to go on here. But
Hmm.
like it's fine that I have friends that I text that I have no romantic interest in them at all. It's purely just you are somebody that I enjoy being around
Right.
and would like I'd want to like still get to know you.
Hmm.
And I'm reading First Samuel right now, and I like just got to the chapter on Jonathan and David's friendship,
Oh, I
and it's
love
like
it.
it's so precious, and it's like why don't we talk about that more? Why don't we talk about
Hmm.
how Jesus's inner circle of Peter, James, and John, like he had good friends,
Yeah.
and he had Mary Magdalene, and Lydia or Linda, what is her name? The 2 sisters.
Oh, Martha?
Oh, yeah, Martha,
Yeah.
and
Mary.
oh yeah, it is Martha and Mary. But
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's not Mary Magdalene. That's why I got confused. Um, sorry.
You're
But
good.
like, yeah, yeah, like there's friendships throughout Scripture, and they're beautiful, and there's nothing romantic about it. It's just we are people, and we
Right.
don't talk about that enough. You are 100%
Hmm.
correct.
Hmm. And I think with that understanding of the beauty of friendship, I think if we understood that more, people would not be ghosting and being so careless with people because they'd have people they care about in their lives of the opposite sex that they wouldn't want that to happen to. So I think like I would not want this to happen to Mary. I would not want this to happen to Martha. So I'm going to be more mindful because this is someone's Mary, this is someone's Martha, and I'm going to do this in a more respectful way.
Oh yeah. If we were looking out for the interests of other people in our interactions more, like everything would go smoother. If we communicated in a way that was like, I'm gonna look out for their best interest by communicating, by making intentions clear, by communicating where I'm at with stuff, the one we'd be setting people up for success when if they actually get married, because communication is so high. I'm not married, but like, and people are like, how on earth do you know these things? Like, how are you supposed to know? And it's just obvious. Like if you just have to communicate. Every
Yeah.
married person I talk to is like, yeah, it's a lot about communication.
Right.
Um, but if we just like learn how to look out for other people and communicate and everything that we do, we'd be a tighter knit church, honestly.
For sure. I definitely agree. So, what do you feel like if you had to choose the top 3 chapters of the book, if someone doesn't read anything else in the book, what which ones would you choose?
Ooh, I definitely go with like the sayings, the kind of the over spiritualized sayings. I would go with the pressures where we're going through, like everyone has to get married, everybody has to have kids, all that kind of stuff. Um, and then I have a chapter that talks about, and this one's just it's kind of niche to Christian colleges,
Hmm.
but it's so, I see it so much that it made me like really care about this one. And this is the chapter that I thought I'd get the most crap on. I am pretty adamantly against the like professional vacation, not vacation, professional engagement level photo shoot when you've been dating for like a month, that you commonly see amongst Christian couples. Because I just like this just makes everything so much more complicated,
I've only
and
seen that
it's.
once, but I'm like, y'all are different.
Did you go to a Christian college?
I did.
You only saw it once?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh man, every like I from the Christian college that I was at, and then from having gone to like a different one and just being around another Christian college,
Mm.
it's insane. And then like it's like this is the one that like when I reach out to other friends, they're like, oh yeah, I see it all the time. And it's great for
Wow.
photographers, like no slide on them, but it's literally like a couple of you're like, didn't they just start dating? And it looks like they're engaged. And it's
Right.
I get like you want to look cute and everything like that. I think that like social media, not to just like write social media off as like I feel like everyone just blames social media for everything. But
Hmm.
like social media has definitely like influenced dating in a negative way where sometimes it really does come across like people are more interested in the aesthetic of a relationship or the aesthetic of a wedding rather than like the person that they're with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was a buddy of mine sent me a meme not that long ago that was like, uh, when a girl starts posting her engagement photos, you know that their relationship is really rocky. Like if it's been like years and she starts like reposting old photos because she's just like caught in this nostalgia of a moment. And I was like,
Mm.
I hate to say it, but I've seen a lot of relationships.
Wow.
And
That's
I,
crazy.
I hope it's not like I hope it's not like judgmental. I think it's just observation because I don't care how long people date. I really just want people to thrive, but I
Yeah.
also care enough to like talk about, like is this the wisest use of our time? Is this the wisest thing we could be doing going out and
Mm.
taking an engagement level photo shoot when we probably have never even had our first fight?
Right, right.
Like
And I think in addition to that, it kind of speaks to how a lot of Christians want to rush things. Like I want to feel this love for as long as, it may be a short-lived experience, but I have to feel this as much as I can. So I'm going to get the pictures. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. We're going to do this. We're going to travel here. We're going to do that. Even though you might know in the back of your mind, like, I might actually not ever end up with this person, but I want to feel this so badly that, like, they rush through things.
it definitely correlates to the ring by spring mentality. Um, like, because it's kind of like, well, I can basically see us engaged because I already have these pictures of it. And I'm not
Mm,
talking about like, oh, you go to a concert and you take a picture, like the classic, like, oh, you go to a sporting event and take a picture. I don't care if people take pictures.
yeah.
It's something about the like professional, like you go to the parkway and you're like in each other's arms, that kind of stuff. Like there's lavender for some reason and all that stuff.
Running through
Um,
fields.
yeah, it's just like you would not do any of these things any other time. But and it's like I know you just met, and so it's just like how could you be this deeply infatuated
Hmm.
and you've known this person for 2 weeks,
Hmm.
and the whole over spiritualized nature of like really just, and I'm not against people praying for their spouse, they should. It's more the like every person is kind of like people think that like the second that somebody walks in and they like make eye contact and like, any interaction is indicating that this person is my future, and so they kind of make that a bet into that, like an investment into it,
Mm,
with the kind of giving themselves away emotionally to somebody that it kind of hasn't earned it.
mm,
There's a level of there's like an intimacy that's going on there relationally that I'm not sure is healthiest for people that aren't even engaged yet or haven't even really been in a relationship all that long.
yeah.
Because I think that there's levels to it, and that's not to say like, oh, I can never open up like my emotions to anybody that I'm not married to. I'm not saying that. That's stupid. But like, there's like levels to this,
Right.
and it's like, what are you're creating this image in your mind that somebody is your spouse before they actually are. And I think you're just
Hmm.
asking yourself to get your hopes up
Yeah. Yeah.
for something that's
I
not
think
guaranteed.
I think girls do that way more than men do. Imagining the last name and our children, what will they look like?
Guys do it a
So
lot more subtly. Guys do it, but just they're not as expressive.
so what's it look like when a guy's doing it? What's the subtle what's the subtle version?
Uh, I'd say like I know like me, I got like baby names written down, which that's more just so I don't forget it. But like dudes will start like thinking about like, like what would our kids look like? Like, does her first name sound good with my last name?
Ah,
Um, like it's not as like up there, and it's definitely not every guy, but like I think people would actually be surprised about how much guys also look forward to being husbands. It's
hmm,
not just like girls looking forward to being wives. Like dudes also are very excited for their weddings.
that's good to hear. I mean,
Definitely
that
not
is
every guy. So some dudes just don't care, but I definitely know dudes that are like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get married.
that's wonderful. I hope I meet that guy. Um, so you were also talking about some things that could be spiritual or that are spiritual, but can be over spiritualized. Can you think of some of those things that
Yeah.
might be?
The number one thing that comes to mind is people saying the expression, uh, when you are fully content in God, then He will send you a spouse.
Don't even don't even let me get on the soapbox. I'm gonna let you talk, but then I'm gonna talk.
It's like it's kind of an ego boost because it's like
Mm,
everybody that says that already is married, so it's like, oh, you reached this
yes.
magical point of contentment. Two, where is that in Scripture? Where is that guarantee that we're going to get married? And where is the thing that says when you're fully content, then God will do anything? Third, I know plenty of people that are not content and they are married. So what's
Mm,
going on? And I know plenty of people that are content and they're single.
mm-hmm.
And it's like if you were, and as I say this, I'm not sure I fully agree with this, but I think there's like maybe truth in the sentiment. If you are fully content with your like singleness with God or whatever, why would you even need to get married?
Exactly.
And and I think people can change their minds. Like I think that I think Jackie Hill Perry has a big thing where she was like, no, I was chilling. Like she was kind of content where she was, but then she met Preston, and
Mm-hmm.
things just sort of changed over time.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good example of like, no, like I'm not, it's not guaranteed, but if I was content, why didn't I just stay that way? Like scripture
Right.
speaks to how that's a good thing if you could do it. Paul's adamant about that in 1 Corinthians 7.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I'm ready. I want to hear your soapbox.
Yeah, it just makes me angry. Exactly what you just said. Because I'm so content. I literally love Jesus so much. And I know that the man that I marry or the man that I want to marry, um, I want him to love God way more than he could ever love me. Like, I don't want it to even be close. Like the Bible says, like, compared to your family, you should look like you hate them to how much you love God. That's what I want from my husband. So I love Jesus so much and I am content, but I also want a man. And sometimes I get sad
Yeah,
about it. And that's okay.
yeah, yeah.
So,
It's not wrong to desire, and people kind of with rhetoric like that guilt people into thinking that like, oh, like you should just be fine with whatever
right.
and then it'll magically appear. Like
Hmm.
somehow you can like trick God into giving you what you want.
Right. It's like, you're like, look at me, I'm content. Like, side eyeing God.
Yeah,
Like, come on, send him now.
yeah.
Um,
It's kind of insulting actually.
yeah. Because you're literally, yeah, like you said, trying to manipulate God into doing something you want him to do. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, those are really good. So I know we were talking about, I feel like the whole time we've been talking about what people need to stop doing. So what are some things that maybe in your book or just in your brain that you would advise people to do in dating?
I'd say one, just ask people out. That it don't overthink it. I think that
Mm,
you can just try to go on a date because you part of Christian culture is people putting too much pressure on a first date. Like you have to figure out if this person is your future spouse. First date, no, you're fine to just go get coffee and
mm-hmm.
get to know a person. And like you don't have to be head over heels for the person in order for anything to come of it. Um, so I think that taking a lot of the pressure off of the first date is huge. So that's a good thing to do. I think you just be patient. You prayerfully consider. You seek wise counsel. It's probably wise to keep the circle small on who you're telling that you're going on dates with. Like if you just
Mm,
started going out with somebody, you're on like maybe your second date, I recommend not telling the world because that does create a pressure for that person. And it kind of like blows it up a little bit in your mind. Like I think that there's trusted people that probably need to know, but like not everybody needs to know.
yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think what else. Communicate. We already talked about that earlier. Like really
Mm-hmm.
just communicate where you are. Like, hey, like I had a good time on our first date. I'm not sure that I know where I want this to end up with whatever, but I'm still open to maybe going on a second date and just getting to know you more with like a little bit more comfortability, a little less nerves because I know what you're like. Because first dates are intimidating. Uh, but just like communicating that is like, wow, I know exactly where that person is at because they told
Mm-hmm.
me. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
like this whole guessing game of like, I don't know if they like the date or not.
Yeah.
I have no idea if they're interested in me or not because you get kind of sideswiped when it's like, wow, we went on like 5 dates and you were like, oh, this is awesome. And then it turns out the whole time was like, well, no, I just didn't, I wasn't really interested and I just didn't know what to tell you.
Oh my
And it's like,
gosh.
like dates ain't cheap. Like
Right. Especially
people
for
are
you
paying their
guys.
money.
Cheap for me,
Yeah,
but
I'm like, I ain't got the money to do it. Like you are doing a service to somebody if you're not, if you know that you don't want to go on a date with a person, if you know that you're going into a first date and you already know, regardless, I'm saying no at the end of it, then it's like, why did you go on the date? You're doing the guy no service by pitying him and then having him waste money on
right.
something that was never going to go anywhere. You might think
Mm-hmm.
that like, oh, it's giving him experience, but really it's just going to say, man, like they don't respect me enough to like care about me
Yeah.
and care about like my feelings enough to say, hey, like honestly, I'm just not interested. Dudes and anyone in general, because girls can ask out guys and everything. People need to get better at just taking a no and not expecting a whole explanation. I think especially if you've been going out with somebody, I think it's the kind thing to
Right.
provide clarity on like, hey, like I just don't like you, but like you see a girl at a coffee shop, you walk up and you're like, hey, like you're really cute, like I'd love to take you out sometime. Can I get your number? She says no, like it can be as simple as like, oh, okay, well, thanks anyways. You walk off and you go on with your day. And
Yeah.
it's sad. I'm not taking away from that at all, but it's just like she doesn't owe you anything.
Right.
And just because you got the courage to ask.
Yeah,
So those
you
are a
can that
few
let
things
that
that
be
come
your
to mind.
win. The ask. You got
Yeah.
enough courage to do that. And I know some guys
Oh
have
yeah.
been mad at me after never talk to me again. Like I did something I shouldn't have done when I told him like I'm not interested. Like that's not healthy, sir. It's not healthy that you're
Oh
acting
yeah.
like that.
It's not. And honestly, but I do encourage people to say yes more just for the sake of just like, because I think that I one time when I think it was might have been a junior in college. I saw a girl I'd never seen her before. I was sitting with some buddies at a place on campus. Saw a girl across the way. Thought she was beautiful. Knew nothing about her, and just walked up and asked her out. And I was shaking the entire time. I stuttered a whole bunch,
Good for
and
you.
I was like, I can't believe I just did that. Like it's nerve wracking.
Yeah.
And she said yes, and we went on the first date. It didn't go anywhere, but like I talked to one of my friends afterwards who I actually ended up knowing her, and she was like, honestly, Swin, like, she's like, that's one of the rare times I've ever seen a dude do that. And that's not a
Mm,
brag on me, like, oh, I did something magical, but it's like, that's so sad that, like, we feel like we have to know the entirety of a person before we ask them out. That's
yeah.
what dating's for, is figuring
Mm-hmm.
out, like, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that by saying yes more, it does promote people just asking more people out. But
That's true.
alongside that, dudes need to get more comfortable with just, yeah, you may ask, but they don't owe you a yes.
Yeah, and that's the hard part too because it's like where you have to choose the environment that that's going to work in too, you know, like
Mm.
if a guy comes up to me at the gas station, it's probably going to be a no. um, and rarely is just like, I just feel like people with good theology aren't just walking around at gas stations, you know? So that's hard too.
Yeah, yeah. You got to think about like, is a parking garage late at night the best time
Right.
to
The
chase
back
a
of
girl down?
Publix, is this a safe place to be saying
Yeah,
yes?
you're in the middle of like the busy walkway of campus, and you
Right.
pass somebody. That's a little bit more like that's understandable because
Right.
there's other people around it, and that's part of looking up for another person is like how how would I feel if I was in their shoes and I was alone with a person I don't know in a
Mm-hmm.
dark area versus they're approaching me in a place that's well surrounded and
Mm-hmm.
they're like like approach it with like a calm voice and just like a very like small demeanor so that you're not like intimidating.
Right.
Like there's like a common sense methodology behind it that
Definitely,
we need to
definitely.
adopt.
And I think definitely at a Christian university, just shoot your shot. Shoot all your shots because once you're out of school, it gets a lot harder and you have to look for young adults groups and dating apps and it just gets so much harder. So just shoot all your shots.
When that I've never heard a truer statement. When I was in college, I had a professor that said, if you leave this university without being engaged, married, and knowing who you're going to marry, you are making a mistake. And I was like, man, that's so messed up because it creates so much pressure.
That's
And
anxiety provoking.
exactly, I still believe that, but I also get his point about how we were at a Christian college, so it's like that was my most options realistically I'm ever gonna get. And I
Mm-hmm.
I went on dates, like I like went on a bunch of dates with people, but never actually like formally dated anybody. And now I moved to a new city, and I'll be honest, it's been kind of rough. The last date
I'm
I went
sure.
on was back in October. Great girl. It just didn't go anywhere. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, man, this sucks.
It's
And it's
dry
like
out here.
it's
It is a
dry.
desert. Sahara.
You're gonna you get in the dating app and like there's this girl that like I've matched with before and we like talked a little bit and then she has a completely different profile. Like she has like two profiles. I'm like,
I
is
saw
she
that.
a
I've seen that
bot?
before.
And I'm like, man, come on, you're cute and I know you're a Christian and you have a job and just I
That's
was like,
those are those all
man,
your those are all your requirements. She has a job. She's cute. She's a Christian.
that's not
You've
the
got a
only requirements.
job.
They help, like unemployed people and poor people deserve love. Like this is another thing.
Broke people
This
love
is like
too.
a
Deserve love too.
there's a lot of things that people say, especially like in sermon series and stuff, that it might be good advice, but I think that there's some undertones to it that's like,
Mm,
what do you mean by this? Because like I've known people that are like, do not get engaged or get into a relationship unless you have blank amount of dollars in the bank. Solid
mm,
financial advice. Like that's not a bad movement. But then it's like, okay, so then do you think that like poor people should never get married? Or do you
mm.
think that an unemployed person should never get married? Like
Yeah.
I ain't saying you should like go out with a person that's just like has no ambition for go getting a job and like
Right.
in order and that they can get a job, they're like like physically able to get a job, but they just don't ever like put any effort towards it. But
Hmm.
like, yeah, like, what are we saying? Like, oh, you're not worthy of this unless you're raking in the big bucks?
Yeah.
It's
I
I
think
don't
it
know.
definitely depends on how people. You have to always include the disclaimers because then people who
Yeah,
don't have enough money are thinking like, oh, then I can't get engaged until I have enough money. And then how much is enough money? So then people kind of get stuck in that too. But
oh
I
yeah,
think you should have. I think you should at least have ambitions, both people, because I'm a counselor, so just even seeing people come to me and say talk about their spouses that kind of just have no ambition to even communicate or stuff like
mm.
that, you need to at least have ambition about something.
Oh yeah. And oftentimes, the way that people date will reflect how they're going to be in a marriage. Like, probably not like it's not a total translation, because you kind of settle in a little bit, and then like life gets busier with kids and all that stuff. But like you're seeing how this person's gonna be. So like, why are you surprised that they are not putting any effort towards getting to know your family in marriage when they didn't do that at all during when you were dating? And it's
Yeah.
like you gotta like, just be. That's why wise counsel is honestly like the biggest thing. Where it's like not the people that like just have their own vendetta. It's just people that are gonna be like soft to you but honest with you about like
Yes.
this is good. You are being unreasonable. They are being dramatic, whatever. Like you need people that are third party people that know you and probably the other person well that can say this is healthy or this isn't.
Yeah.
And that is more. I think there's proverbs about like an honest friend being more valuable than like gold.
Hmm.
That sounds like something Proverbs would say.
Sounds good to
Um,
me.
but, but yeah, like why, like it's worth so much to have
For
somebody
sure.
that's just like you're being an idiot right now.
Right, for sure. And yeah, I think that's so important because we are all human and we all lean towards the selfish side or the side that's protecting ourselves. So to have people in our lives, even though we don't always crave accountability to have those people, it's important because you're not always going to even want to hear the things that they're telling you, but you've put that in place so you still have that opportunity.
Mhm. Totally
Um,
agree.
and in addition to what we are talking about with the dating apps, I think another thing is like you're saying, if they're not intentional about getting to know your family before, why would they be like that in marriage? And I think that's a hard thing with dating apps because I feel like guys think of things differently too on dating apps too. Like y'all be like just straight chilling, like, oh yeah, I'll talk to her today, talk to her tomorrow, maybe I'll hit her up 2 days from now. And it's like, does this man even like me? But some men think like, oh, we're not dating yet, so I don't have to talk to her every day. And then some guys don't care. So it's like, how do how do girls even navigate this? It's so hard.
The dating app thing, I never did it until I moved up here because I was
Hmm.
like, man, I go to church 30 minutes away. Like, I don't live in a big city. I'm in a very like unchurched area, so I was
Mm.
like, man, I gotta find something somewhere. And it's like I almost went on a date not that long ago, and
Okay.
then the person was like we had set it and everything, and then she was like, I don't want to do long distance, and it was like 45 minutes is inconvenient. It is not long distance. And
Honestly, I
I was
consider that
like,
long distance, but I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I literally tell
like
people more than 30 minutes is long distance to me.
gas being the way that it is right now. I'm like, yeah, you got a point, but I was
But
like,
no,
man,
it's not. It's not.
I was like, we couldn't even like go on the first date to try to figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
come on. And I think there's a lot of people on dating. There's a lot of profiles. It's like, I don't think you're on this app. I think that
Right.
we're not connecting. I don't think you physically get on the profile. And it's if you
Right.
don't, they should have something in place. I hope that they do, where it's like, okay, if you are realistically are not touching this thing within 30 days, we're just gonna delete your account because it's just like
That
half
would
the
be
people that
nice.
I'm sending roses to people that I'm like, you're never gonna see this. It's
Well,
just,
if you
it's,
update your Hinge account, yeah, there's it tells you active today or active now. I don't think it tells you anything past that though. So, and once you match
man.
with them, it doesn't tell you anything else. So you don't even know if they were
Oh
active
yeah.
or not anymore. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Match
travesty.
somebody and then they don't. Yeah. Gosh.
It
Those things are brutal.
yeah. So I want to leave it up to the Lord, and I'm just like, as I've gotten older, I'm just like, maybe it's just not for me. Maybe I just need to focus my my thoughts on other things. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
There's
So
my job does a bunch of like we fundraise money for like missions and everything.
mm,
And I'm since I have like the platform with the book, I'm kind of like maybe I should do a singles mixer. As like and the money would go like benefit the nonprofit I work for. But like, man, like we got to meet people somehow. The dating app thing is
yeah.
not working.
And a lot of Christians
With
have been doing that more lately too. I had two other people. Do you know if dating?
Yes, I met her in
Oh,
person.
cool,
And I was in San Diego for like a random business trip, and she was at like she's from there, and so I got to
cool,
go to one of her mixers. She's so nice.
dope. Yeah, she's cool. She's cool peoples. And then there's another one in New York. So yeah, I think
Oh,
that's honestly how the modern day Christian is finding people. And
yeah,
I'd rather that way
yeah.
than dating apps 100%.
Oh yeah, yeah. The like the temptation within me to just uproot and move to like Nashville or Texas just because there's such an abundance of
Right.
Christians there
Yeah.
is because I don't know a single person that's like, yeah, I prefer the dating apps instead of meeting people in person. No, it's like I want give me someone cute, Christian,
And has a
and
job.
has a personality and a job, and I will be set for life.
Right.
But it's so hard to like because like half the people this one a guy gave me a bunch of crap for this not that long ago because I made a TikTok about it. But like I hate how on dating apps there's I don't know how guys are, but girls some girls every other answer is just about tequila, and it's like is there a problem? Like I'm not even like oh I'm making fun of alcoholism. Is there an issue? Because
Right.
every answer is about alcohol, and it's like
What?
why?
I haven't
It's
experienced that. But
I
I
don't
love hearing from guys and your experience about it too. So like I love it because I feel like guys suffer in silence so much. Like you guys are going through it too, but you never hear guys talk about it.
it's brutal. What I need to do is I need to mute my account and then flip it to say that I'm interested in guys, and then just see what like the guys that are on there are doing. Because I don't know. I don't know. Maybe one of my housemates is on one of those dating apps. I need to just like scroll on her thing and see what the dudes are doing. Because I'm like, because they're complaining too about stuff, and
I
I'm like,
know.
what is it? Is it the same problem or is it different sides of it? And
I don't
I can
know.
only imagine.
Yeah, but I really do hope that Christians are gonna keep so many it's gonna be so many mixers everywhere, maybe in every city, and then that's how so many Christians are finding people because it needs to be yes, it needs to be in person. Um but yeah, all the things. There's so many things. We could literally do this once a month. Like we could
Oh
sit here and
yeah,
talk about this once a month.
it
Um
never ends.
right. So let's try to end it with some optimism or something. So what's something you think a Christian person who's in the dating world would probably need to hear right now?
If you are not married, but even if you are married, our core commissioning is for discipleship, and that can take place regardless of whether you are single, dating, engaged, or married.
Hmm.
Regardless of whether you have kids, regardless of whether you want kids, foster care, adoption, whatever. We are built for community, one, and that doesn't just entail a spouse.
Right.
And we're built for discipleship, and that can take place across so many fields, across so many demographic things. And there's a lot of relationship that needs to go on between the older generations, like I'm talking like people that are in their like 60s 70s, and the younger generation, because there's so much
Yes.
we can learn and so
Hmm.
much that they want to pour out into us. And that honestly is like a big convicting point for me, because my church is very older generation, and I don't know most of them. And I want to make the intentional effort of like getting to know the older people in my church,
Mm,
because it's like I got time, and they would definitely love to just like pour out wisdom onto me.
yeah, I love that. I love that idea. And I'm sure you guys are thinking, so you're gonna tell me I'm trying to date right now, you're telling me to focus on Jesus and discipleship. But guys, literally, like there's so much joy and uh just beauty and just seeking Christ. Like I was reading my word yesterday morning. I just felt like so great. Like I haven't felt that way in a while. Just like spending time with Jesus and allowing him to just, you know, lavish me with his love. So I know some people may be thinking like, oh, well, I haven't gotten there yet. Keep pressing in. The Lord will show himself to you and it'll be better than any romantic relationship that you could ever experience, because we have to also remember that we're still humans. We're flawed. You're going to be marrying a flawed person, like you talked about earlier, and also a flawed marriage. So
Mm,
there's no other relationship that is going to have more perfection in it than your relationship with Christ. Um,
mm,
so lean into that. The Lord is compassionate, like Landon said, and He is patient with you. You are the apple of his eye. He loves to spend time with you. All the things you're looking for in a romantic relationship can be found in Christ. So yes, I don't know if you guys wanted to hear that, but it's what you needed to hear, and that's what we talked about, accountability.
Yeah,
Um,
regardless of whether you're in a relationship or not, invest in community because
Definitely,
that is because people should not just have their spouses be their only friend.
definitely.
That's not healthy.
So tell the people where they can find the book and where they can find you.
You could find me on social media on TikTok and Instagram at Detox Christian Dating, and that is also the name of the book, which is available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback formats. There's a slim chance that I might end up changing the name of all my social media stuff because I'm planning on releasing future books, and so they won't be called Detox Christian Dating. So
Right.
I might change the name, but regardless, you can find me Landon Swain and you can figure it out.
Okay.
You're smart. I trust you can figure it
Good,
out.
good, good. Yeah, they are. They are smart. Awesome, awesome. So as you guys know, you can follow the Parallel at the Parallel Pod on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, at the Parallel Pod. And yeah, thank you again, Landon, for coming on the podcast.
Oh yeah, I love talking about it, and you're such a good host. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I appreciate that. So as you guys know, remember to always speak the truth in love, kiss the sun, and I'll be talking to you guys next week. Bye.